What's up, everybody? Jayk Gallagher here for some lo-fi high fantasy. I hope you're having a great night. Welcome, fellow adventurers. We're going to get right into a Steel Witch build from Valda's Spire of Secrets. Let's see what we got here. All right, we got some witches in here. If you haven't looked at Valda's Spire of Secrets, there is an incredible collection of custom classes, and the witch is pretty dang entertaining. They call it debuff the class, but you can play it a lot of different ways. You see that you get 1d8 per witch level for your hit points. Your saves are wisdom and charisma. Interestingly, you start with whips and blowguns as things that you're proficient with, along with short swords. That's already extremely fun. And starting equipment includes whip and blowgun. Already you know you want to play a whip build. Other cool things about the witch, they get hexes. Hexes you can concentrate on at the same time as you're concentrating on a spell that you're casting on somebody. So you can actually concentrate on two things at once with hexes, and you keep a hex going by cackling as a bonus action. You can also attack with your familiar. So one thing you can do is cast a spell that requires concentration, and then start by hexing them. And then with the level 5 feature, Insidious Spell, after they're hexed, they get disadvantage on their saves against spells you cast. So you cast a single target hex, you maintain concentration on that using your action on your turn. You use your bonus action to attack with your familiar. Then on your turn, you cast, let's say, Hold Person with your action. Now they have disadvantage on the save for that spell. And then you use your bonus action to attack with your familiar again if you want. But then your hex will end on the next turn because a hex only lasts one turn unless you cackle at the end of the next turn. So you go action, cast the hex, bonus action attack with the familiar. Action, cast hold person, bonus action cackle. Now you're maintaining the cackle to the next turn. Next turn, you use your action to attack with your familiar, with an attack spell, with a melee attack that's right next to the person that's paralyzed by your hold person, so it's an auto crit. And you could use your bonus action to attack with your familiar and do double damage. Or you could use your bonus action to cackle to keep whatever the hex is that you have up going. So that's entertaining. We'll look at a few of the hexes that I like. But I'm basically going to make a level 5 build today for the Steel Witch. But I will talk a little bit more about these witch classes. I'm having a huge amount of fun playing a Blood Witch right now. So Insidious Spell makes the person have disadvantage on a spell save against you if you have them hexed. You'll notice that they have the same spell slot progression as a wizard or sorcerer or whatever, but you'll also notice that they have a spells known rather than preparing spells. So you're going to know certain spells like the way a warlock or a sorcerer does. You get a lot of cantrips. You notice you get 5 cantrips that you know at level 5, and you know 4 hexes. And the way you choose the hexes dictates how you're going to play the character. So you start out at level 1 building with d8s for your hit points, and choosing the things that are gonna be reflective of your future build. And your future build, the things that you're gonna choose is gonna be dependent on the subclass you're gonna take, because there are a lot of different witch subclasses. I'm not gonna get too deep into them right now, but just taking a quick gander here, we'll skip past the hexes and grand hexes for now. We'll look at witches' crafts, which are the subclasses. Black magic is basically being a necromancer. It's all about animating dead, but their hex is so good. I wish that the hex would apply to some of the other classes. It's a con saver. You lose 1d6 hit points per round that you keep the hex up. So that's pretty great. Blood Magic Witch gets the ability to cut themselves and then cast an action spell as a bonus action and lose 5 hit points. That's fantastic. You've got a Green Witch, which is basically like Druid Light as a witch. You've got Purple Magic, which is illusion and mind control. You've got Red Magic, which is fireballs and blasting. You've got Steel Magic, which is the one we're going to talk about today. Tea Magic is 100% support. You're going to basically cast Sanctuary on yourself and then do something that is similar to Portent. Oops, I scrolled too soon. You're going to do something that is similar to Portent to support your party members. That sounds really fun. And then you've got Technicolor Magic, which is basically a Disney witch. You are making friends with little animals. You are making them do your bidding. You're making people friendship bracelets. And then finally, White Magic is like a cleric. You are the healer witch, and you have some healing hexes and stuff. But again, today we're going to talk about the Steel Magic Witch, which I think is worse than the Bladesinger and worse than the Hexblade. So it is a tricky puzzle to build, but I have so much fun with the Blood Magic Witch and so much fun with the Valda's witch spells that I have to build another witch, and the Steel Witch sounds really cool. I love a Gish character, and I don't want to play the overplayed Hexblade with Devil's Sight and Darkness. So how can I replicate the fun of a Bladesinger and the unfairness of a Hexblade in this Steel Witch build? Well, let me show you why it's not as good as a Bladesinger. Number one, just like Bladesinger, they get an extra attack at level 6. However, there are two horrible problems with this. One is that you have to cackle to do your extra attack. So if you cackle, you will extend your hex as a bonus action, so that's good, but you're using up your bonus action to not attack. So with a Bladesinger, you can attack, then bonus action offhand attack, and then attack again. But with the extra attack feature on the Steel Witch, you can attack, bonus action cackle, which the only thing it's going to do is extend your hex, and then attack again. So you're losing one attack. And then second of all, you'll notice a big difference between this and the Bladesinger. There is no cantrip. You can't cast a cantrip as one of the attacks and then attack again. That means you cannot Booming Blade and then attack again. Before level 6, you can attack with Booming Blade and or Green Flame Blade and do extra damage. But the only subclasses that allow you to attack after using a cantrip are Eldritch Knight to some extent and Bladesinger. Also very important, Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade, Green Flame Blade are not on the Witch spell list. They're not on the Witch spell list, which means you have to port them in, either using a feat like Magic Initiate or Aberrant Dragon Mark, or you have to choose a race that gets a free cantrip, like Elf, like High Elf. But you really won't need Booming Blade anymore after level 5. So do you want to choose your race solely on the fact that you get Booming Blade, even though after level 5, you're never going to use it again, or you're only going to use it in certain scenarios? Now, Bladesinger, I should pull up the Bladesinger details for you. Okay, so let's look at some key differences between the Bladesinger and the am I sharing my screen with you? Share screen. There we go. Let's look at some key differences between the Bladesinger and the Steel Witch. So, Bladesinger, you get a bone when you are in Blade Song, which requires a bonus action to get going. You gain a bonus to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier. Now, the Witch her intelligence modifier or his intelligence modifier, I mean, sorry, his spellcasting modifier is charisma. When you go into your malevolence hex, which by the way is also kind of bad because you can't do another hex while you're in this hex. However, your concentration on this hex can't be broken. So you start doing a hex in order to get your version of blade singing as a steel witch. Your AC equals 12 plus Dex mod plus Con mod. And this one is you gain a bonus to your AC equal to your intelligence modifier. So the witch is by far a better AC bonus. Number one, you don't have to be wearing good armor to begin with, because when you go into this, it's 12 plus Dex plus Ka. And then the other thing is it's 2 modifiers instead of 1. So that's good. Blade Song wise, you get an increase in walking speed, you get advantage on acrobatics check, and you get advantage on maintaining concentration to a spell. You don't get any of that with the Witch, but Blade Song has this limit of you can only use it proficiency bonuses times a day, which the Witch does not have that limitation. You can cast this hex as much as you want. You get this AC bonus, and then you get that you can use your charisma modifier to do damage and attack with it. So that's good, kind of a Hexblade type of thing, but it has this very specific limitation, which you can get around with your Hexblade using Pact of the Blade, but you cannot get around it with the Witch if you want to make attacks with your charisma modifier. But if you're attacking with a strength-based weapon, maybe you have a big strength modifier to begin with, and we'll get into that in a second because I'm going to build one in a second. This is really interesting, and this is how I think we can get more damage out of a witch. Just like if you're trying to optimize a rogue, you can optimize your witch's reaction. Whenever you take damage from a creature you can see that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make a melee weapon attack against that creature. So imagine you've hit level 6, you've done attack and cackle and extra attack, and you still have your reaction open, and then someone hits you and does damage to you. Well, now you can attack them again. So I'm gonna say spoiler alert on my strength-based Steel Witch build. The idea is you take Great Weapon Master, you pump your strength stat, and you hit once with your +10 Great Weapon Master, twice with your +10 Great Weapon Master, and then you proc your reaction and you hit again with your +10 Great Weapon Master. And now you're doing, if you're wielding a strength-based weapon, let me show you the math. You are doing 2d6 plus 10 plus 5 plus 10 plus 2d6 plus 5 plus 10 plus 2d6 plus 5 plus 10, and that is way better than that is way better than Booming Blade. Now the thing to beat, however, is a Bladesinger at level 6 that has extra attack that is casting Shadow Blade at level 3 and casting Booming Blade on that Shadow Blade. That is an insanely overpowered combination that we have to figure out how to beat. Now, this was 66, right? So if you're doing 3d8 on an upcast Shadow Blade, plus your dexterity modifier, plus your booming blade extra damage after level 5. Then you're attacking with your offhand. Let's say you've got a mundane rapier in it, and you have not taken the dual wielder feat, or the fighting style, dual two-weapon fighting style from fighter, or fighting initiate two-weapon fighting style. Let's just say you're attacking with the rapier in your offhand. So you took the dual wielder feat, so you can attack with a non-light weapon. And then your extra attack is with the Shadow Blade, but you don't get the extra damage from the booming blade on the second hit. That is only 46 damage. If you happen to take Fighting Initiate, two-weapon fighting, or get a level in Fighter to take that fighting style, you can add 5 more to it, and you can do 51. And I showed you it was 66 if you're attacking 3 times with the heavy weapon. Now, there's no way that you can get into Blade Song with a two-handed weapon, because if you use 2 hands to make an attack with a weapon, your Blade Song will end. So you cannot use a heavy weapon with Blade Song. You can use a heavy weapon with the Steel Witch. You just can't attack with your Charisma modifier. But you can totally use this reaction, and you can absolutely use this buff here, and you can wear strength-based armor if you want, to up your thing, and it'll still function. So the only way to really beat a 6th-level Bladesinger upcasting Shadow Blade is to build a strength-based Steel Witch. Otherwise, you're doing on an extra attack, you're doing 1d8 plus 5 plus 1d8 plus 5, and that's nothing. But if you have Great Weapon Master, and you're proccing your reaction attack, then you can beat that level 6 Bladesinger. Now, how could you proc your reaction attack even better? Sentinel feat. If somebody next to you gets attacked, you can attack as a reaction. You could take Polearm Master and Great Weapon Master. Let's see how that plays out. And then I'll tell you why it wouldn't work with this build. 1d10 plus 5 plus 10 plus 1d4 plus 5 plus 10 plus 1d10 plus 5 plus 10, but that's impossible on this build. And it's still less than 58 than the 66 that we found. But why can't we do that on this build? Because you have to cackle as a bonus action. So Polearm Master does not work. I mean, it works. You could do Polearm Master and Great Weapon Master, but you're working with D10s. So if you don't do the bonus action attack, you just do your attack and your extra attack, and then you manage to proc your reaction attack, you are doing 61.5. It's not the same as 66, which is what you get if you're using a maul or a two-handed weapon, a maul or a greatsword. So what are some other ways that we can add to the witch's reaction, proccing reaction attacks? I mean, she's gonna hit if she gets hit, but if you take Sentinel, she's gonna hit if the person next to her gets hit. There's also Mage Slayer feat, which lets you hit somebody if they cast a spell next to you. And there's also either take a level in Fighter for the fighting style, or fighting initiate feat, and or sorry, not fighting initiate. Well, there's fighting initiate feat superior technique, or there's the martial adept feat. Either way, you get the Battle Master fighting style that includes brace, which allows a reaction attack when somebody gets close to you, or riposte, which is if somebody attacks you and misses, you can attack them. The problem with that is if you take one of those feats, you only get 1d6, you only get to do it one time per short rest. Can you proc that extra reaction attack? The other way that you could do that is take 3 levels of fighter to get Battle Master, which then you have 4d8s worth of extra damage to add to things, and that's pretty good. The problem is you stop being a steel witch if you, especially at lower levels, right? If you don't get extra attack till you're level 8, right? If you're either 5 in fighter, 3 in witch, or 6 in witch and 3 in fighter, you have to be level 9 before you get extra attack. If you take fighting initiate or martial adept, you only get the 1 die that you can use per short rest. So what I think is best is, my recommendation is the Sentinel feat, so that when you've got your Steel Witch Hex up, you're either, if they hit you, you hit them, or if they hit your friend that's standing next to you, you hit them. Polearm Master is a very good one. You can tell me which way you want to proc your reaction attack, but if you do it, you are hitting better than a level 6 Bladesinger who casts Shadow Blade. It's not necessarily better than what certain Hexblade builds might be doing. I'll show you a recent calculation of where is this file? So I'll show you a recent file I made when I was trying to optimize Rogue. I just found that Hexblade is insane. Hexblade with Great Weapon Master and Polearm Master, and then of course Devil's Sight and Darkness, so you get advantage and all of that. That's doing 78 on level 5 and 96 if you Eldritch Smite. And then you can do the same thing with Sharpshooter and Crossbow Expert and be in Darkness and do 75 average damage, or 93 if you Eldritch Smite. Although I think Eldritch Smite is just for melee, so maybe that second number is some malarkey. But if you look at Hexblade with Great Weapon Master, you're averaging 78. This spreadsheet that you're looking at is me trying to optimize Rogue and basically coming to the conclusion that you cannot. I'll do a future video about trying to optimize Rogue, but basically Phantom Rogue with Crossbow Expert is doing an average of 51, and that's the most comparable thing. And then Enforcer class from Valda's Rogue with Polearm Master is the best melee one. Anyway, off topic. We are talking about the Steel Witch. Point is, if you're trying to optimize Rogue, you need to proc your reaction attack too, because Rogues never get extra attack unless you multi-class. But if you can attack with your reaction and you can add your sneak attack die to the reaction, then you're actually getting mildly passable DPR. This Steel Witch class finally beats the Bladesinger class if you're making a strength-based build. I'll show you the build that I made. All right, so I'm going to show you a build that I made, and it is I rolled my stats. So the stats are pretty good. Don't be upset about it. I'll show you with regular stats. It's all the freaking same. So let's see. Here we go. So these are the stats I ended up rolling. Uh, 16, 15, 14, 14. Those are pretty good. You don't usually get stuff that good. Now, nonetheless, even with such mad stats, multi whatever, multi-attribute dependent, you still want to have as high a strength modifier as possible because you're going to be relying on your strength modifier to hit, and then you're going to want to have as high of a charisma modifier as possible because you're a charisma-based spellcaster. But I think strength is most important because you're trying to hit them a lot. You're gonna cast spells too, and hopefully you're gonna have silvery barbs and other stuff to mess around with everybody's saves. But at the end of the day, you gotta hit them. Now I'm taking level one great. So I'm in a game where they give you a free feat at level one, and then of course I got my level four feat, and I'm taking level four blind fighting. Now there are a lot of different feats that would be awesome to take here. I told you Sentinel, so you can proc your reaction. Um, Another feat that would be great would be Warcaster, so you can cast a single target spell as a reaction if somebody provokes an opportunity attack from you. Um, there are a lot of feats that I would like to this character to have for this character, especially Fey touched, so I can have Silvery Barbs, because Silvery Barbs is not on the witch spell list, and neither is Booming Blade. Um, so, however, I took blind fighting, and when I say blind fighting feat, I mean I took the fighting initiate feat and then took the blind fighting style. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I doing that? Because um, let's see, I have a uh I I showed you I have an 18 in strength, right? Where's my character sheet here? I have an 18 in strength. Is this the no, this is the all right. So I have an 18 in strength, so I have a plus four to hit. So that's a plus seven to hit at level five. Now, if I'm using Great Weapon Master, I'm gonna be a plus two to hit at level five. And that sucks. Uh, and I'm only going to be doing plus four damage when I hit. I don't want to be doing be a plus two to hit. So how do I fix that? I fix that by getting advantage. How do I get advantage? Well, the witch has the darkness spell. She also has a hex called Obfuscate, which basically lets her cast fog cloud around herself as an action. And then you maintain it with your bonus action. So you could cast fog cloud as an action right before combat starts, and then just keep cackling every bonus action to keep it up. And guess what? If you have that extra attack at level six, you have to cackle to do the extra attack. So every time you cackle, you are continuing the fog cloud. And so it has a double reason to have your cackle. So that's great. Um, and you aren't using a spell slot to cast fog cloud, because you're just using this obfuscate hex. Now, that does conflict with the hex that raises your armor class. You can only have one hex going at once, so it does conflict with the hex that raises your armor class and the hex that makes it so that you can react with another hit when somebody tries to hit you. But it's gonna be hard for people to hit you if they can't effing see you. They're gonna be hitting you at disadvantage. So you get to choose when you're going to use obfuscate. Let's say you want to use your hex that makes it so that you hit people when they hit you, and makes it so that your armor class is higher. Well, then you're going to cast the level 2 spell Darkness. You're going to be in darkness, and then you're going to have blind fighting. So whether you're using the Witch Hex Obfuscate or you're casting Darkness, you're going to be using blind fighting, which lets you see up to 10 feet away from you when you're blind, which means you run up to the person and you stab them a bunch, and you have advantage And an advantage is an effective +5 to your attacks. So if I have +7, I take away 5 to get the +10. I'm down to +2, but I'm rolling with an advantage. It's an effective +5. I'm back to a +7 to hit, which is not that bad. Um, so so that's fun. Now, you might have noticed that I have a high elf character sheet and I have a mountain dwarf character sheet. Why? Why would I build both? Well, high elf, uh high elf, you get booming blade. So if you're gonna play levels 1 through 5, you're not gonna have your extra attack, and you're gonna want to have booming blade. High Elf also has the special weapon proficiencies. It gives you long sword and something else and something else. And then with the Tasha's rules, you can trade those proficiencies so that you're actually proficient with a great sword and a maul and a great axe. All of a sudden, the witch, who is only proficient in martial weapons that don't, the steel witch, who's only proficient in martial weapons that don't have the heavy and special property, all of a sudden, the steel witch has proficiency in weapons that are heavy because you took the elf race. Also, the elf race gets to choose one cantrip from the wizard spell list, and that cantrip is Booming Blade. So at levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you are attacking with a maul and you are using Booming Blade with it. At level 3, you have the second level spell Darkness. Early on, you also have your Obfuscate Hex, so you're attacking with advantage with a 2d6 +5 +10 weapon. And it's good. And then you have your additional 1d8 from the Booming Blade. And then, of course, you can run away from the person and make them come at you, and you can get the additional 1 or 2d8, depending on if you're under or over level 5, from proccing the Booming Blade damage. Now, what if you're starting at level 6, or what if you just don't care about Booming Blade? What if you care more about being safe? So for this build, right? For this build, um, as the elf, the witch is only proficient in light armor, and I had to load my stuff into strength and charisma so that I would have some kind of casting bonus. I personally hate only having a +3 in my spell casting modifier, but strength has to come first. But anyway, even with these stats that I rolled, my dex is only +2. So in light armor, before I start doing that hex, my AC is 14. So that is not that great. I have to be in that hex in order to have AC 17. Now, witches get a curse. You can pick which curse you want. One of them is Feral. If you choose Feral, then while you aren't wearing armor or carrying a shield, your AC equals 13 plus your dex mod. So if I chose Feral, my AC would be 15 here. And then when I went into the rage, it's not a rage, it's a hex, the malevolence hex, my AC would be 17. However, I chose visions here as my curse, which lets you add your charisma modifier to your initiative rolls. So effectively, my initiative is my dex mod plus my charisma mod, so it's +5. That's not bad, right? Um, However, what if I'm using the example that I told you earlier, where I'm trying to perpetuate the obfuscate curse so that I can maintain advantage, which means I can't run my hex that keeps my AC up, but I still want to have an AC. Well, that's where Mountain Dwarf comes in. Mountain Dwarf is fantastic for building spellcasters who have armor. You could take the heavily armored feat. So mountain dwarfs start with proficiency with medium armor. They also start with proficiency with a couple different martial weapons that you can again use Tasha's rules to swap out for other martial weapons. So if you make a mountain dwarf character, you can have a mountain dwarf that's proficient with a glaive, in case you want to take Polearm Master feat later, with Maul, with Great Axe, with Great Sword. You can start with a dwarf, a mountain dwarf that's proficient in those things, but it's also going to be proficient in medium armor. However, it's not going to be proficient in Booming Blade. So if you're starting at level 6 instead of level 5 and you don't even care about Booming Blade, perhaps you care more about armor than Booming Blade one way or the other. So that's the alternate build, is you get your heavy weapons with a witch who's normally doesn't have these two-handed weapons. But you get armor with the dwarf. You get Booming Blade with the elf, and you get armor with the dwarf. The other thing about Mountain Dwarf is instead of +2/+1 or +1/+1/+1 with your attributes, Mountain Dwarf has +2/+2, which is pretty cool. So let me show you my Mountain Dwarf sheet. So Mountain Dwarf, I put +2 to strength and +2 to charisma. Notice that leaves charisma at 17, which makes a great fit for a level 8 Fey Touched. Or if you think that my Fighting Initiate blind fighting feat is dumb and you don't want to do the combo with the darkness and the blind fighting, you could take Fey Touched at level 4 and get Silvery Barbs. However, if you want to make a great Weapon Master heavy weapons build, you got to figure out some way to get advantage if your attack bonus is going to be +7. So here's the dwarf. The dwarf is walking around in a breastplate. In the game I'm playing in, I started out with 750 gold, so I didn't have any problem paying 400 gold for breastplate. You could always pay 200 gold for the next level down from breastplate. You just have disadvantage on stealth checks, and you still have AC 16. Point being, you have 14 plus your dex mod for your AC, so your AC is 16. Now, if I'm doing the Malevolence Hex, my AC is only going up from 16 to 17. That's still a big difference. That's still very important, but I feel safer when I'm not in that hex, and I can start looking at other hexes to put on people. So that gives me a little bit more flexibility. Also, once I hit level 6 and I'm doing extra attack, I don't need Booming Blade anymore. I don't need to waste a feat on Aberrant Dragon Mark or Magic Initiate to get Booming Blade. I don't need it when I hit level 6 because the extra attack plus proccing your reaction attack is more damage. And so I'm probably, if I'm playing the dwarf or I'm playing the elf at level 8, I'm probably taking the Sentinel feat. Or you might take the Sentinel feat earlier, so you have an additional way to proc a reaction attack. It's up to you. Now, before we end this video, let's talk about the spell selections, because the Valda's spells are really interesting and cool, and the witch spells are really interesting. The Steel Witch automatically knows these spells, and obviously you want them. Shield, magic weapon, haste. Those are all necessary. Now, you remember I was talking about we need to beat a Bladesinger who's casting an up-leveled Shadow Blade at look at these dice. I love these dice. Look at this. Look at this. This is from Kraken. It's freaking beautiful. Witch does not get Shadow Blade. Witch does not get Flaming Blade or Flame Blade. Witch does not get Shadow Blade, Witch does not get Flame Blade, and Witch does not get Spirit Shroud. That's horrible. So the only way that we're going to score hits anywhere near what a Bladesinger wizard is going to score, and keep in mind we have a D8 of hit points rather than their D6, so that's good, and our Malevolence Hex actually helps us have a potentially higher AC, and we do get shield though, so that's going to boost it by 5 whenever we're using our reaction for that. All of that's good, but the only way we're going to beat the damage that they're doing with Spirit Shroud or Shadow Blade is Great Weapon Master. So we're using Strength-based Witch, Great Weapon Master, Darkness or Obfuscate, Blind Fighting Style, to deal more damage than a level 6 Bladesinger casting Shadow Blade. Obviously, I'm not going to run this build all the way through to level 20, but you're definitely hearing dribs and drabs of what I would do to go further. If we're trying to focus just on increasing the damage of the hits, I would take Gift of the Chromatic Dragon or Fire Strike, the giant Fire Strike feat. However, I'm more interested in proccing the reaction attack with this, so I would probably plug in Sentinel. Mage Slayer is really fun later on. Anyway, I'm repeating myself. Let me talk to you about the spells. Um, so witch spells are freaking awesome. Let's take a look at what's available for witch spells. As I mentioned, you get all of these for free. Um, and you want to think about spells that are going to be good for melee. So let's look at the witch spell list. If you take the possessed witch curse, you'll get a couple extra witch spells. If you take the if you don't take that and get the couple extra witch spells, then you're gonna really have to choose very wisely about what spells you're gonna take. So looking at witch cantrips, Candy Blast is a Valda's one that makes difficult terrain. Card Trick, I just don't think that's great, but it's a damaging cantrip. Chill Touch is a fantastic cantrip that makes people unable to heal. Cryptogram is a fantastic Valda's cantrip that lets you send an 8-character message to any character once a day. And that's super effing cool. Like I sent a message to someone to Volo. I was in Tomb of Annihilation. I'm annoyed with Volo. I sent him a cryptogram that said, "Watch out," so he can be tripped out. Eldritch Orb is an area of effect cantrip that's pretty great. You've got Message, which is always useful. Minor Lifesteal does 1d4 or 2d4 of level 5 damage after a con save to give you some of your opponent's HP or THP. So Minor Lifesteal is pretty fun. But you'll also notice that there's a lot of stuff missing here. Hocus Pocus is like a witch-themed prestidigitation, but you'll see that prestidigitation is also here. Now, there are a bunch of great first level spells on the witch list, and many of them are new. One that I love for maybe not for our witch, but I'm using it on my blood witch, is action. It basically lets you give your action away. So if you don't have something good for your action, give it to the barbarian, give that person an extra action. Baning everyone is great. Second, of course, always to bless, but a witch casting Bane, holding concentration, and then going in and slamming everybody is great. Fairy Fire can give you advantage on all of the melee hits that you're going to be making, and it only uses a level 1 spell slot. Flawed Reconstruction is a really interesting healing spell from Valda's that we'll talk about later. You can also hurt somebody with a Hollowing Curse by holding concentrations on that. If you're in the middle of combat, you can cast Psychedelics. Like if you're in the middle of a group, you cast Psychedelics and all of them get disadvantage on attacking you if they fail their saves. So those are all good. I'll show you the ones that I chose for my High Elf lady. So for level 1 spells, I chose Fairy Fire and Bane. Again, we're playing a Gish, right? And we're gonna want to go in there and smack them with a mundane weapon or a magic weapon, but it's not gonna have any cantrips on it. So I'm gonna want to do something with my concentration and then go into battle. So looking at those level 1 spells, if I Fairy Fire all the enemies, right? I hold my concentration on that, and then I hex either one of them, all of them, or I use my hex to go into the thing, or I use the hex to do the obfuscate thing to create the fog cloud. Now I'm concentrating on the fog cloud and I'm concentrating on Fairy Fire. I guess I wouldn't do those in tandem because Fairy Fire grants advantage and fog cloud grants advantage. So let's say we do the Fairy Fire, and then we do the thing that boosts our AC and gives us an attack if they hit us, the Malevolence Hex. We're holding concentration on two things. Now we go in there and start slamming them with our weapon over and over again. And we're providing if we're not creating the fog cloud and blocking our party from seeing the enemies and we're doing Fairy Fire instead, we're giving everybody else in the party advantage on hitting them as well. Now, let me address the thing that a lot of people bring up, which is, oh no, you have a fog cloud or the darkness cloud. Everybody in your party is going to be mad at you because they're not going to be able to see the enemy. Well, darkness, you cast it on an object. What if you cast darkness on your familiar? Which, by the way, I told you witches can attack with their familiar, and there is a death snail familiar that can poison enemies. So that's pretty interesting. What if you cast darkness on your familiar? Now your familiar can move in, create the darkness so you can make the attacks, and then it can move out and move the darkness away so that your allies can come in and not have disadvantage on their attacks. Or you can cast darkness on a rock that's on a rope. You're holding it in your hand while you're attacking, or you have it, sitting on your head while you're attacking, and then free inventory action, you take the rock that's attached to the rope, you throw it over there. You still got the rope, so you still can pull it back later, but now the darkness is over there, your friends can see the enemy, and then on your turn, free inventory action, pull the rope back, now you get the rock sitting on your head again, and you're stabbing people again with advantage. Ways to keep the darkness off your party so as not to annoy them, but obviously you're going to want to talk to the DM about this strategy. You're going to want to talk to your party members about this strategy. There's ways that they can make their character builds enhanced by what if everyone had Devil's Sight or blind fighting, or the druid turns into a giant spider all the time and gets blind sight. There's a lot of ways that everybody can work with darkness. And in the Hexblade build, you can always get Shadow of Moil later, which I believe is a level 4 spell. I'm not sure what higher level witch spells provide this effect, as this is basically, we're talking about a level 6 build here, but we can look into it in the future. So back to the spells, we're going to take a look at what's good for level 2 spells for our witchy woo. Second level, there are a lot of really interesting spells. I suggest you buy the Valda's book or the Valda's PDF and take a look at these. I suggest you ask your DM if you can start using these spells in your game. There are so many great classes and subclasses. It's very fun. Obviously, at second level, you want darkness if you're going to try to do this one trick. Hold person is a really great thing to concentrate on. So again, witches have this insidious spell effect. So if you hex one person, a single target hex, then they have disadvantage on the hold person. You hold concentration on the hold person, and then you change your hex. Maybe you change your hex to the one that boosts your AC, or maybe you change your hex to something else and you hex somebody else, but this person is held. However, if the person has disadvantage on the save against your spell, hold person, they make the save at the end of every turn, right? So if you keep your single target curse on them while they are held, they're going to keep having disadvantage on their save against the hold person. In any case, we really like hold person as a steel witch because when you go up and stand next to somebody that's paralyzed, you get auto crits on them. Just effing auto crits. Can you imagine you're in a fog cloud that you made, you have advantage, you're holding a person, and you are auto critting on them every time? That's fantastic. That beats a Shadow Blade, that beats a Hex Blade. Anything that's auto critting beats. So concentrate on hold person, and I'm getting distracted by my beautiful dice. Concentrate on hold person and get your auto crits. So that's a fantastic optimal spell. Intrusive Thought is a fantastic spell that uses your reaction to turn an attack into a disengage, dash, or dodge action. I pretty much always use it for disengage, but maybe you want to use it to make the person dash so that then the people around them get an opportunity attack. It's a second level spell, but shouldn't Silvery Barbs be a second level spell too? So let's say you see the big bad melee enemy is about to crush your poor little fragile wizard. Uh, you reaction cast Intrusive Thought, you turn melee enemy's attack into a disengage. Now they're just effing standing there and they never attacked in the first place. That's a fantastic reaction and a fantastic reaction spell from Valda's. Invisibility is great. It's great for exploring places. Spider Climb is really cool. Misty Step, it feels like a must grab, particularly if we don't have space for the Fey Touched feat to get Silvery Barbs and Misty Step. Instead, we take Misty Step and we take Intrusive Thought and we deal with that. Petal Storm is an incredible increase in the power of Cloud of Daggers. It's a 15 by 15 square, and it increases in power to 5d4 of damage if leaves or bushes or flowers get sucked up into the petal storm, but you concentrate on a 15 by 15 cloud of basically plant daggers. That's pretty great. I love it. I love Cloud of Daggers because I love pushing people into it. And I'll tell you a couple ways to push people into a Petal Storm. But Petal Storm, another fantastic use of your concentration. Shatter is for blasting. I think I'd rather hit him with my Great Weapon Master Sword, but you know, AoE is always good. Suggestion is fantastic. You just say, you cast it, you hex them so they fail their save, and then you say, I suggest that you spend the next 8 hours walking as far away from this battle as you can. And then you just hold your concentration on it. They stay hexed because you keep tackling. They keep having disadvantage on any kind of save that they have, but they don't even have a save with suggestion. You just suggest that they stick to that thing for 8 hours, and after they fail the first save, they're stuck. And they're just walking away forever until somebody makes you break your concentration, which again really makes me want to take the Warcaster feat on this class. But how am I going to do this trick to have advantage if I don't take blind fighting? And how am I going to do the extra damage if I don't take Great Weapon Master? But there is an argument to be made, right, for going ahead and making not a strength-based build and just making it a 1d8 plus 5 plus 1d8 plus 5 build, because you can have Warcaster, you can proc a reaction, you can get an extra attack. If they proc a reaction, no, it doesn't say attack of opportunity on that hex, so you can't actually cast a spell when you get to hit them. But you know, you could do Warcaster and Sentinel. Sentinel provokes an opportunity attack that you can replace with Warcaster, and you could cast another spell. There is an argument for that. But if you want to do enough damage in combat to be a true Gish and to truly compete with some of the incredible Gish builds, I think this crazy Strength Witch build is the way to go. Third level spells. Counterspell. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of Valda's spell that I think are really great here. Counterspell and Hypnotic Pattern are my absolute favorites. Ruby Eye Curse is really interesting. It blinds a target. It blinds a target after 5 feet. Like they can only see 5 feet away from themselves. So that makes an argument for a bugbear version of this class that constantly has the 5-foot reach, right? You cast Ruby Eye Curse on them, they're blinded after 5 feet, and you stand more than 5 feet away from them and just keep hitting them with a reach weapon. They're blinded, so you have advantage, but that's only going to work on a single target. Also, witches come equipped with the whip proficiency, which has 5-foot reach. So you could stand outside of that and hit them with your whip, but you're only doing 1d4 of damage. You're not getting your Great Weapon Master bonus. So anyway, Ruby Eye Curse is an interesting spell that's at level 3 with Valda's. Rusting Grasp is also an interesting spell for your melee witch. Rusting Grasp makes it so that you can destroy the person's shield. You do something like 4d6 worth of acid damage, but you can also destroy their shield, making them have -2 permanently. Or if they have metal armor, you can destroy their armor to make them have -3 permanently to their AC. So if you're in melee uh, let's say you get the Warcaster feat and somebody's trying to leave, you cast a single target spell on them and you ruin their armor. Now you keep bashing on them. Or let's say you go in there and instead of bashing them twice, first you cast Rusting Grasp on them. Now they have less AC, lower AC. Now you can bash them twice or three times or whatever. So Rusting Grasp is particularly good with the melee witch. Now let's look at what hexes you might choose, because you get 4 hexes. I don't want this video to be longer than it already is, so I'm going to get right into just my favorite hexes. Um, Apathy. It makes one creature indifferent towards another creature until the creature that it is indifferent towards hits it. It's also a charisma save, which is great. So I really like that one. I like it for my other witches, like the ones that support people, like the white and the T. Um, but I like it for this one too. Bleeding is particularly good for this one because every time something takes a hit, it gets an extra 1d4 points of hit points of damage. Note this is a Constitution saving throw, which is not as good, but because you are a melee witch and you're trying to hit them 3 times a turn, hexing them is great. So you cast level 2 darkness on yourself. First you hex them with bleeding. Then you use your bonus action to attack them with your familiar. Then you use your action to cast darkness. Then you use your bonus action to attack them with your familiar again. You might use one that has blind sight. Maybe Pseudo Dragon has blind sight. We're about to check. Then you run up on them and you start bashing them, and every hit is an additional 1d4 hit points of damage. That's 3d4 if you're getting 3 attacks on them with your Steel Witch. Dire Familiar, we don't need for this one because we're not trying to attack as often with our Familiar. Doom Ward is a support hex. It's basically a death ward. Duplicity on its surface sounds pretty good for this build because it gives them a 50-50 chance of not hitting you every time you have your hex up. So that's a thought. An Evil Eye is a wisdom save or they're frightened of you, and obviously frightened creatures have disadvantage on their attacks and they can't move towards you, so that is also useful for a melee build. The Hobble Hex, I just effing love. It's a strength save, which is like the best effing save to use on people. And it reduces somebody's speed to 10 feet, and if they're flying, it falls. That is fantastic. Peace Bond is great for a witch that's not this witch. It locks everybody's weapons in their sheaths. Uh, it does not say it doesn't lock your weapon, but if you're a support witch and you're casting Sanctuary on yourself, and then you're using this Peace Bond hex, it's going to be really hard for your enemies to do anything while your friends are killing them. This one is good for you. It just makes everything difficult terrain around you and the enemy. Imagine you've placed them in a darkness or a fog cloud, and now you're I guess darkness because this is a hex. You place them in darkness, and now you put a hex where it makes everything in a 30-foot radius difficult terrain. They can't leave. They can't leave the darkness. They just have to stand there and get hit by you over and over again. So that's a good one. Obfuscate is the one that I've been talking about. It makes a fog cloud. You have to keep cackling every turn to keep it going. But cackling also powers your extra attack. So you get a double use out of this ability when you're doing the level 6 extra attack. You could poison them, but it's with a con save. You could lower their armor class, but it's with a con save. This one I also really want to point out. I'm not using it on my build, but it's fantastic for many builds. This is your forced movement for your witch. Bonus action, they move. Notice there's no save. So let's say they just walked out of your pedal storm. You walk up to them and shriek in their face, and they get pushed back into the pedal storm. This one can knock everybody around you prone. Tremors, that's a pretty good one. Slumber can make people fall asleep, but they need to have kind of a low hit points. And that's where I'm going to stop on analyzing the hexes. If you want to know more, I suggest you buy or check out Valda's. These grand hexes that you get at level 9 are fantastic. You can make a coven if you have 3 spell casting people in your party, and you can all get additional spells and spell slots based on being in a coven, which is so effing fun. I'm playing a pink goo covered blood witch hedge. That's the race from Humblewood in an up-leveled Waterdeep campaign, Waterdeep heist, and it is so fun. You know, you debuff the enemy with a spell, you debuff the enemy with a hex, you shoot something at them with a spell, you support your folks, you blind the bad guys, you hide around the corner, and you know, it's like the ye old treant monk god wizard. It's debuff the class. It's fantastic. Um, so I think that's everything I've got to say on the Steel Witch build. I guess I'll show you the hexes I took for my level 5 build. Obviously planning for the level 6 attack. I've got the difficult terrain one, the extra D4 on a hit one, the fog cloud one, and the apathy one. One of the reasons I chose the apathy is because it's a cost save, and anybody who you've hexed has disadvantage on a spell save that you cast on them, like Hold Person. So you need a single target hex to do that. And obviously, bleeding is great, but it's a con save. So if you really need to make sure that somebody fails a save, put apathy on them. And at the same time, you can make them indifferent towards you or indifferent towards the squishy party member. You've got only D8s of hit points, but you do have some armor if you're playing the Mountain Dwarf, or if you're playing the Elf, you have some armor by the fact that you've got that other hex going. I guess you couldn't really use apathy if you have that other hex going. So I'm leaning towards Mountain Dwarf, particularly if we're looking at level 6. I'm going to be missing that Booming Blade at level 5, though. So those are thoughts. And there are going to be situations where you're not going to make an extra attack at level 6 and beyond, and you're going to want that Booming Blade. And obviously, Booming Blade scales. So I'll leave that decision up to you. So those are the hexes I took. And then the level 3 spells I took were Rusting Grasp and Hypnotic Pattern. I really love Counterspell, but Rusting Grasp fits really well with this character. You lower the person's AC while doing like 4d6 acid damage to them. That's fantastic. And the second level spells, Darkness, Hold Person, and Intrusive Thoughts, the ones that I was really hyping up. Last thing I'll do is I'll show you the spell text for Rusting Grasp. On a hit, it's a melee spell attack. On a hit, the creature takes 6d4 acid damage. Not bad considering that you're not even attacking them for the damage, you're attacking them for the armor debuff. And then corroded armor gets a cumulative -3 penalty. So you could attack them again with this and make it -6 penalty. But, you know, how many rounds of combat do you want to use debuffing before you just step in and kill? Armor reduced to an AC of 10 is destroyed. A corroded shield is destroyed. So the person's going to have -2 if you kill their shield, and they're going to take 64 acid damage. You can also use this spell outside of combat to break things in the environment that you might not normally be able to break. And then if you upcast it, you get an additional 2d4 of acid damage, which again is not that bad considering mostly you're doing this to completely ruin their armor class. So that's my Steel Witch build. Thank you for joining me, fellow adventurers. Recording live from the world of Elenia Toth, some lo-fi high fantasy. Have a beautiful evening, morning, day, whatever the hell it is for you.